Welcome to the Walk Around Podcast. Our goal is to share with you the insights, the skills, the processes, and the leaders that are influencing the retail automotive landscape today. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Funsch, as always, joined by Danny Vendrell. What's up, Danny?
How's it going, Nick? Good to see you.
31 days into the year already. You believe that?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It is just flying by. I felt like we were just kind of celebrating the holidays. The ball was just dropping on the new year, but we are where we are.
Here we are. And we are excited about our guest today, Glenn Pasch, who is the CEO of PCG Digital. Certainly anybody familiar with automotive is familiar with, I think, Glenn and his perspective. I think he brought a lot to the conversation today. What should our listeners, or what should you kind of take out of the conversation today?
Yeah, I think we dived into kind of leadership skills that are, leading dealers are kind of implementing things that you can be thinking about going into this year. Some of the big trends and dynamics that we all acknowledge: EV, modern retail, the inventory shortages, and just things that you could be thinking about today that set you up to be successful in the future. I think it was a great conversation.
Yeah, I agree. So let's do it. Let's take a walk around with Glenn Pasch from PCG Digital. Glenn, welcome to the Walk Around Podcast. Great of you to join us. Hard to believe we're already a month into the new year. Can you believe that?
No, I can. Well, we were just talking before we hit record how it just slips by. I think we all fall asleep in that first week. We just are so relieved the holidays are over and we pick our head up and it's the 10th and it's the 15th and then we start panicking. But yes, here we go, 1 month in. Hope we all are still on our resolutions.
Yeah, for sure. I know certainly I have some work to do, but I try to think of it more as goals than resolutions. I feel like it gives me some more flexibility when it comes to kind of breaking them. But awesome. You've got a lot of perspective in retail automotive, not just from kind of the automotive side, but certainly from the leadership side. I'm interested kind of as you think about what separates or kind of leadership and kind of what good advice you've gotten over the years around kind of how to be a good leader and what that looks like in kind of the sales environment.
Right. Well, for me, I think it was just being perceptive. I've been working, having had a job since I've been probably 12 or 13. You start picking up when you're working for others, what makes you happy, not happy like, oh, this is fun, but what you appreciate from someone who's in charge and what you didn't like. And I think that's stuck in the back of my head. And then when I was in my 20s, I was very lucky to work. I worked in hospitality. I worked for a very successful restaurateur in New York City. And he would always preach about being, just you don't have the title. It doesn't matter. You're a leader. If you're a leader, that means people are looking at you. And he would see me having people come to me and ask questions, or they relied on me, or I just would take initiative to do things. He said, that's a gift that a lot of people don't have. And he would always just say, remember, when you're a leader, everyone's watching you. They're watching what you do, not what you say. And I think those are the best leaders, are the ones where those two things mesh together versus do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I love that kind of thought process. I think I was speaking with somebody recently and they talked about, leaders make decisions. And I think so often, when I think about kind of good mentors or leadership kind of perspective that I've been exposed to, the reality is it may not have been the best decision, but it was well thought out.
Right.
It was given with conviction. There was a why behind it. And, some of kind of what you shared there and kind of your early work experience and kind of people coming to you asking for advice. It's like, hey, you were able to kind of make a decision, provide some direction, and go from there. So, I think that's fantastic. But when you think about kind of leadership in automotive, the automotive is really in this interesting space. There, dealers can certainly kind of be bucketed into a variety of different categories, but we have leaders who are kind of out on the forefront of this retail evolvement and kind of how consumers want to interact. We have kind of laggers who are saying, hey, I'm just going to kind of milk this thing for all it's worth. And when I'm forced to kind of get in there, I'll do it. And it's the bell curve of dealers,
Sure.
kind of through those two spectrums. When you kind of think about those dealers and wherever they are in that kind of spectrum, what questions or what separates dealers through those different levels that they're coming to you for either perspective or advice? What are you hearing?
Well, I think if you think of those two examples you gave, the bell curve, you know, you have some people who others may look at as saying you're lagging, you're not changing, you're not evolving. That also depends on where they are in their journey. You know, if they're 2 years from retirement and or selling, they're looking at the opportunity cost or perceived pain of changing versus, well, I'm just going to ride this out. Now, if someone's younger, different conversation. I think on the flip side, those people who are constantly evolving, they're just asking better questions. I think in automotive, we tend to latch on to a phrase or a topic. You've been in it for a while. So if you think back, I always joke, but if you think back 5-6 years if you went to NADA, 1 year the theme was attribution. Everybody was talking about. Then it was social media advertising. And then it was everyone's doing SEO or everyone's an agency. And then digital retailing has been the new big buzzword, versus the really perceptive dealers really always hold on to the idea of customer experience.
Right.
How can I make it this a better experience for my customers? And they work backwards. And I've written about it and I've talked about it and I've trained on it. And so some people call me up and will say, walk me through what you're saying when you say work backwards. So what I would say is very simple question for dealers to think about. How do I want my customers to feel when they're done doing business with me? Now, once you have that, now you take a step backwards and then you say, well, what does my team employees have to do in order to generate those feelings? Write those down. Now we can build a process and say, okay, this is what we need to do. Then we move backwards to say, okay, technology. What technology do we need to deliver that? For my staff to make it easier for them, also the consumer in the dealership, that could go technology to the website. How is that interaction? And then you're moving back on training and accountability and things like that. It's that technology piece where everybody gets hung up on because we see a new piece of technology. So I'll go back to digital retailing, all the old buzz. We need to have this. Problem is sometimes you'd get a piece of technology that really didn't fit your process, your customer experience, what you're trying to deliver. So you're trying to force it in versus the reverse, really understanding what we do here in our dealership, how we want to do this, and then go search for technology to help deliver that experience. And again, for both your employees and your customers.
Danny, what are some of your thoughts there?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And asking those questions with like, hey, the consumer walks out of the store, they've got the keys to the new car. What are they going and telling their family and friends about their experience at that dealership? What's kind of sticking out in their mind? And then working backwards. And, you know, as we're talking and kind of just the reality of the industry today, and we're in January, you know, inventory is still a challenge, and that's top of mind for a lot of dealers. But at the same token, you know, that demand for the cars is higher than ever. And so maybe for some dealers listening to this, they haven't had to make that acceleration into that shift of kind of the modern retail, the consumer experience, because consumers are knocking on their doors to try to get the limited inventory that's out there. And so with your sightlines, Glenn, and you talk to so many dealers, like I'm curious, what are leading dealers keeping top of mind, even amidst the industry realities of today with inventory, with the demand where it is? What are they thinking about?
Well, I think they're, at least for my clients and the people that we've talked about, it's twofold. They've adapted, they've had to change. So to your point, if we just focus on the inventory issue, about a year ago, maybe a little longer, we started having conversations with our clients because we had a few clients already doing it. And my brain went, ooh, this was good. I mean, they were going direct to the consumer.
Right.
Advertising, we'll buy your car. You don't have to buy a car from us, but we want your car. To not totally depend or feel dependent on the auctions. They would still go, but they said, we need another. All of a sudden with this inventory, a lot of those dealers started getting aggressive about that. So they learned, to your point, now that their inventory is less and people are willing to pay price, they're holding their gross, where before they would have to feel that they would have to just, in order to sell the car, I have to just discount. What some of the top dealers are hoping is, and what they're really holding on to is, as inventory loosens up or expands and makes it easier, we don't want to stop those things. This worked. So let's keep doing it. Let's not get into bad habits. Now, to your point is, that's one of the things that the top dealers are worried about is, are we getting lazy on our processes because we have 3 or 4 customers for every vehicle, but still they're contingent on how are we treating them? Because if you come in and I say, well, this is the price, and you say, well, what can you do? And you'll get out. I got somebody else. Someone's going to remember that. They're, to your point earlier, they're going to go tell somebody this was a horrible experience, even if they get the vehicle and it's a horrible experience. Why are we going down that road? I think the best dealers through everything are always going through that filter of, are we making our customers feel appreciated, feel like they had a good experience, because we want them to come back for the next 3 or 4 years to do service. We want them to recommend. I don't want to have that short-term win. I sold a car, yay, but I lost a customer, and potentially a customer with a big following. We don't know anymore who has the big following to go out and broadcast, these people are horrible. And so I think that's where the best dealers are constantly just asking very simple questions. How is our experience? Where can we save time? Where can we make it better? What do we have to do to make it better? Where? And don't lose any of these lessons we've learned over these last 18 months.
Yeah, it's interesting, Glenn. You brought up a point. It's like, hey, yay, we sold a car, but we lost this service. I think there's probably risk prior to that in this environment. You may not even get the car sale, and you still may get all that residual kind of negative impact if you're not kind of focused on that consumer experience. Certainly a watch out, I think.
Yeah, and I think the inventory, it's a double-edged sword, meaning someone's going to look for a specific vehicle. But what we've started doing for the last, I think, 8 or 9 months, we also added a layer into the advertising for some of our clients to say, we'll help find you the car. Right. So that idea of, hey, this may not be perfect, but we have some pre-owned options. Maybe we can find it. Or, hey, let's order you the vehicle so that you get exactly what you want. So all of these options, and I think it is that fear of, we're in the driver's seat again, meaning I have inventory, 5 people, I can charge this price. That's short-term thinking, where the best dealers are scared of that versus excited about that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's I want to go back to one point because I think it was very important. We started this conversation kind of talking about leadership advice and some of your experience. And then we transitioned a little bit to the consumer experience, and you spoke about kind of working backwards. And the thought is of how customers feel. And it's really the same thing with leadership too. And it just reminds me that, people don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. And I think whether you're selling automobiles, whether you're selling F&I products, whether you're selling anything, it's all about kind of that feeling and creating that kind of emotional attachment. And I think that speaks around the leadership piece.
But you're selling, to your point, you're selling your employees every single day, or you should be, on why this is a great place to build your career, right? I had a conversation this morning with someone, and that's, my challenge to dealers, very simply, when they were all talking about, I can't find great people. I said, are you advertising your company, your dealership, as a place to build a career, build to work with the same focus and effort as you are advertising that vehicle or your oil change special? And I said, where are your testimonials from your employees saying this is a fantastic way to build my career? I started as this and now I'm here and I can do this. Automotive is a great career path for people, but I just don't think anyone's taking the time to advertise that and then wondering why I can't get good people.
Yeah, it's boy, we could probably go hours on the state of the job market and kind of how to differentiate yourself. But I think to your point, the same strategies apply. How you position yourself to the consumers should be how you position yourself, and more importantly, your teams, your associates, your employees should see the alignment between kind of what you're selling to dealers and kind of what their experience is in store. Switching a bit. There's this business is always evolving. There's things like the metaverse and all these kind of cool things happening in automotive. But from just a business trend standpoint, from your perspective, what are you monitoring? What are your teams monitoring, either for yourselves on behalf of dealers, and why?
So there's a few different areas, from when I hear everyone talk about the metaverse and they're getting excited. I joke, before we talk about the metaverse, are we doing what we need, what we should be doing right now perfectly? Meaning, are we even texting our customers? Are we answering our customers? Are we following up with our customers? Are we, really staying in touch with someone thoughtfully for the 3 years in between leases? I said, so let's not start running down the block to metaverse and Oculus and all this other stuff when we're not even doing what we're supposed to right now. I think from a marketing standpoint, this past year with the iOS 14 updates and a lot of the different privacy, that was a really big topic to tackle from a tactical standpoint. What did we have to do for our clients? Was everything up to date for them? Our agency did webinars on it, wrote some papers on it, just to help the industry. But more importantly, it was very tactical, when all of a sudden people are opting out of tracking and things of that nature. So that was one. The other is, I think, again, it's getting back to the experience. I think we've gone full circle of people are starting to realize that there is no differentiation, I'm sorry to say, vehicle to vehicle for the average consumer. If you threw 5 cars that sort of looked the same, they probably wouldn't be able to tell you who's who. Mm-hmm. And they're just looking for a good experience. They want a good price. They want to feel like they got a good deal, but it's all about how they want to be treated. So I think that's one trend of getting back to marketing who you are as a dealer in the community and what you're trying to, how you want to be seen, as one of those people, a dealership that helps the community, helps your consumers. That in terms of the other, it's just watching all of these different things now. Part of it is the challenge for dealer groups. This is one of the ones that we're still not 100% sure where it's going to go. But, when manufacturers start saying this is our retailing technology or whatever piece, this is what you have to use. Well, that works well potentially for them, and that's their vested interest. If the manufacturer says, well, I want I'm just going to pick Honda, for instance. Every Honda dealer, person goes to a Honda website and you click the button, they get the same experience everywhere versus different ones. Well, that works for Honda. But if I'm a group that has 10 or 20 stores and I want to have for my group, Glenn's Auto Group, and I have 10 different locations and 10 different brands. Well, I want everybody in this area who goes to deal with Glenn's Auto Group to get this great experience. But now I have 15 different pieces of technology that I have versus no, I want one. So that's the interesting battle where you're going to see how much leverage some of these larger, maybe potentially public groups, because I think top of my head, you have Asbury building their own technology or their own way of doing things versus the manufacturer saying, nope, if you want co-op, you got to use this. Right. So I think that's one battle we're watching. And then also just some of the, GM just starts saying we're going to have our third-party site. I mean, all of these third-party sites, I'm not sure how we're all fighting all of this. You have Auto Trader and your cars and Car Gurus and Carvana, and then you have this listing site and that listing site. There's only so many places that consumers are going to go to. And you're really going to have to spend a lot of money to advertise your, GM with theirs is going to have to advertise a lot to get people's interest. And that's going to take time to advertise that, to get it into the brain of the consumer, where right now I ask my boys who are 15 and 16, if you were looking for a car, where would you go? First thing they start talking about is a Carvana.
Right.
Why? Just because it's been pumped into their head from advertising. Not even Vroom, it's more the Carvana. So those are some of the trends we're watching. And of course, EV and all of the rest. So we're prepping all that content. But, same thing. I just think we're a little further away from that, just because I don't think the infrastructure in the US is set up. I'm not sure tons of people really want to buy into it today, 5 years from now. But that is a trend as well that we have to pay attention to, because it's coming. So we have to pay attention to it. We have to market it. And again, market not just we have the vehicles, but what's in it for you to have this vehicle? How is this different? There's a lot of content and education that has to go along with this versus just we sell an electric vehicle.
Yeah. It's interesting. We had Ed Sheehy on the podcast later at the end of last year. And one of the things he was speaking about was kind of the entrepreneurial spirit of car dealers and how kind of retail automotive was built on the backs of kind of these local dealers and their connection with the community and their marketing kind of angles and whatever it looked like. And, I'm interested as well to just kind of see those, and they've collided already, but the kind of two worlds collide more when it comes to kind of OEMs and their kind of strength that they bring to the table, but their will around kind of how consumers interact digitally, it kind of balancing that with kind of that local entrepreneurial spirit, which in some ways is kind of...
Well, it's a hard thing because when, years ago when I came into the automotive space, you heard the word franchise thrown around a lot, and you still do. But it's not a franchise in the same way as a McDonald's or a Dunkin' Donuts or a Starbucks, where the place looks the same. There's a way they do it. They send you everything, and you don't have a lot of flexibility. Or I'm not a franchise owner, so I don't know how much flexibility you have to be entrepreneurial, other than I'm just going to give a great experience here to get people to want to come back to my McDonald's through being nice, whatever. That's the thing that I still don't quite know is this desire moving towards this idea of, no, every GM store is going to run the same way. It's going to look the same way, and you're going to use the same tools, and you're limiting that quote unquote entrepreneurial. We saw articles from Australia where I think some of them were saying, nope, here's the price. You're only selling it at this price and you have no control. And in Europe, same thing, we're going to take your franchise away unless you give us, you follow these rules. So is it not that I think it will be a longer period of time, but that's always my concern is at what point does the manufacturer say, nope, everyone is going to be the same. It is going to become McDonaldized or franchised in that type of sense.
Yeah, and certainly there is a lot we could go into, and it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But I think you brought some fantastic perspective there around, don't worry so much about the future, because the reality is the future is now, and there's probably some opportunity within your own operation to kind of optimize those processes. So, Glenn, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you joining us. I would thank you for your thought leadership in the industry. I know you and your team always tries to elevate the industry as a whole. And so grateful for you joining us. So,
thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Where can our listeners find you?
So they could find, if you want to connect with me personally, pretty simple, Glenn, 2 N's at PCGcompanies.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out a lot. Also, you could follow me and join me on my podcast. It's called You're in Charge with Glenn Pasch. I release episodes twice a week. Same thing, talking about leadership, interviewing people in and out of automotive to help people who are find themselves in charge of something, build skills. Because as we all know, a lot of times we're thrown in and we look around and go, what am I supposed to be doing now?
Yeah, what side's up?
Try to figure it out. But yeah, LinkedIn, please connect with me there. That's easy. I'll be more than happy to ask me questions. I do reach out. I chat with people every single week, just trying to help everybody get better. So I appreciate it.
Well, be sure to check out Glenn's podcast. And if you like this episode, share it with a friend, leave us a comment. And until next time, thank you for listening to the Walk Around Podcast.